So I want to share a bit about my journey, my entrepreneurial journey, my spiritual journey over the last few years. Um, and what I especially want to focus on today is around the theme of abundance. Because if you have ever started a business, a side hustle, if you've ever veered off the traditional path of the 9 to 5 structure, um, maybe you've gone through a bit of what I've gone through, and maybe you can relate. So, my entrepreneurial journey started in 2018. 2018, I launched a career coaching business, and then a year later, it kind of transitioned more into web design and branding and more of creative work combined with coaching. So, for the first year or so, I really loved it. Actually, the first year was where I went all in on that business was 2020. And I think we all know what happened globally in that year. That was a fun time of isolation. And, what happened for me when kind of all those external distractions were removed, I went 100% in, to the point of obsession, my first year of business. I mean, I loved what I did that year, but I had absolutely no balance. I had no boundaries with myself. I also had no accountability. Like, I lived by myself in an apartment in Phoenix, Arizona when I launched the business, and there was nobody around me to even call out, any of my let's call them toxic habits, right? Let's call these toxic habits. There was no one around to tell me, "Hey girl, like, are you okay? You're working 12, 14 hours a day, like you are living, breathing, obsessing about your work. Are you all right? You want to have some fun? Like, maybe we can get out the house, take a walk." I just didn't have anyone around me who could call me out and who could kind of hold a mirror to me to show me, like, the ways in which I was getting very obsessed to the point of burnout. And this cycle of burnout as an entrepreneur, that happened pretty much every year of business. So let's say for about 4 years, where I was really going all in on the business, I kept cycling through the same patterns of burnout and frustration and disappointment, and so many times I caught myself overworking or launching all these new things. But what I realized in the process of that, the overdoing mindset, it came so much from the concept of hustle culture. And in modern society, hustle culture is really, it's everywhere. It's so pervasive. But when it came to hustle culture, I realized that wasn't helping me at all. Because what it was doing was creating this constant inner pressure to do more. And what that hustle culture mindset created in me, not only was that internal pressure, but it also blocked me from actually enjoying rest, from actually giving myself permission to take a break. In hindsight, looking back on the last 5 years of business now, I can see this a lot more clearly. I can see this a lot more clearly. All these toxic patterns that I'd been cycling through, and how much my finances, not only my finances suffered, took a huge downturn after probably the first 2 years. And not only that, my health took a huge downturn to the point, I kid you not, I actually had my right ear get so blocked from congestion one year. This was maybe 2022. I was overworking. I was over hustling. I was worrying all the time. I was living and breathing this business and figuring out, how can I make more money? How can I support myself? I was so stuck in survival mode, in scarcity mentality, that literally my right ear blocked up to the point where I had to go and have surgery. I actually had to have surgery on my right ear because it had become so blocked up. And I find that so interesting now when I think about it from a more spiritual perspective. Like, to me, I realized I was ignoring my own body and my own intuition for so long that it caused a physical symptom. Because I was in such a state of discomfort, I was not in a state of ease. I was in a state of dis-ease constantly, from this hustle culture mindset, from this overproductivity, from thinking that, if I don't have X amount of money in my bank account, if I'm not doing X, Y, and Z, if I'm not being consistent enough, then I'm not good enough. I'm not doing it right. I'm not doing business right. I'm not doing life right. I am not right. Like, something is wrong with me if I'm not conforming to this hustle culture, overproductive, overdoing it mindset that is so pervasive in our society, in this modern world. It's everywhere. And looking back on the last few years of my life, it's been literally the worst financial period, the worst, like the most amount of financial lack I've ever experienced. And I'm really discovering that at the root of that lack has been constriction. It has been me continuing to dig my claws into something that I really needed to take my hands off of it. Instead of taking my hands off of it to let the business breathe, to let myself breathe, to let my nervous system relax, to step back and get some clarity, to, think about other things, pour into other things, I did the opposite. I held on tighter. I tried harder. I forced more instead of surrendering, stepping back, taking my hands off the business, and allowing for more flow. I tried to force more instead of flowing more. And as I've been reflecting on my business journey, I've actually completely taken a step back from it this year, which is 2025 as I'm recording. I've really taken a step back from it to understand, who am I beyond this business I created for myself? And the irony is, maybe you can relate, maybe let me know in the comments if this is resonating. The irony of creating a business, a structure to support myself and create more freedom in my life, all it did was actually trap me in the subconscious programming that I felt trapped in every corporate job I've ever had. Every 9-to-5 I ever had, I felt trapped. I thought by starting a business, it would create freedom. That's what society, tells us, right? Oh yeah, create a freedom-filled lifestyle. Just create a business. It's going to be amazing. You'll be so free. But the thing is, until you really dig into the subconscious programming, the underlying beliefs that you use to create anything, those beliefs can also be designed to trap you in a prison of your own making. And that's exactly what happened to me with my own business. I created it to be free from the corporate world, but I ended up just drowning in the same patterns that trapped me in the first place, with the hustling and the overdoing it and never letting myself relax and never letting myself have fun. That was actually a really key part of this journey and the realizations I'm having now. It's like, my God, I never let myself have any fun because I was so obsessed with this business for so many years, and I was just overanalyzing everything. Why isn't it working? Why isn't it working? Why aren't the sales coming? I'm trying so hard. I'm doing all the things and blah, blah, blah. But here's something that nature has actually really been teaching me lately as I've stepped back from work in general. I actually moved to a farm outside of Madrid in Spain. The universe, very unexpectedly, brought me to this farm. Like, this opportunity literally landed in my lap through a friend of mine who suggested it out of the blue one day because she knew I was looking for a new place to live. And I'd also been really feeling the call to get into nature. I had been living in Granada, Spain, for 2 months during the summer. But everything in my body and my intuition was telling me, you gotta get yourself into nature. You gotta clear the noise. You gotta make space to really be able to hear your intuition and to hear what your soul, what your heart is calling you to do next. Like, what is the next phase, the next iteration, the next evolution for your business, for your life, for the work, for your purpose, for the things you want to put out into this world. You have to clear the clutter. You have to take your hands off the wheel. You have to pause, surrender into stillness. And for me, the best way to do that has been to get out into nature. So here I am on this beautiful farm, as you can see. And something that nature has really been teaching me, the trees especially. I can't believe how society has never openly, mainstream society has never openly encouraged this deep connection with nature, because to my surprise, nature really does imitate life. The trees especially hold so much wisdom because they're so deeply rooted into the earth, and those roots extend limitlessly. Like, the system of trees, they're so interconnected all around this planet. Like, can you imagine what they've seen? Can you imagine the wisdom that they hold? Can you imagine the perspective they must carry about humanity in general and how we've been evolving all these years, all these centuries, these millennia? And so recently, I took a walk in the woods. I did a little hike, and I was feeling a lot of fear because here in the farm, this little floppy hat, here in the farm, I've really been in a void space. And if you've never heard of this concept of the void, it's a sacred pause. It's a surrender into stillness to help you shed what's no longer serving you and get into a metamorphosis. It's really a cocoon stage to help you emerge as a butterfly, as the person you came here to be. And you can check out this video I made about the void if you're curious to learn more about what that process has been like for me, and really how to approach the unknown. So I was on this hike the other day, right? And I found this gorgeous, gorgeous tree, so like straight out of Lion King. The tree that Rafiki lived in, the wise monkey man. I found a tree that reminded me so much of that in real life, and I was called towards it. I went up to this tree and I just spoke out loud to it. I asked it directly. Well, first I started crying. I started crying to the tree. I gave it a hug. I felt its energy and I just started crying, and I admitted out loud that I was scared. I said, "Tree, I'm scared to make a change. I know my time at this farm is coming to an end. Like, I can feel it. I can feel that I'm really getting ready to leave this cocoon. It's time to find a new home where I can spread my wings more and expand more than what this place allows. But I'm scared. Like, I'm fucking scared." And I said, "Listen, tree, how can I learn to be more like you?" I said, "That's what I want now. How can I learn to be more solid and structured and grounded and deeply rooted? I'm tired of feeling like this tiny little plant, like blowing in the wind and feeling like I'm just flailing and floating around. I said, I'm ready to learn how to have deep roots that really support me in my abundance, in my purpose, in my path. I'm ready to learn how to build structures that are really going to support me, in the ways that will most help me thrive. What can you teach me about how to become deeply rooted? And what can you teach me about abundance? Abundance. And the response I got, I was told, step away from the tree. Just step back, take a step back. Just take a look at the entirety of this tree. Zoom out. Zoom out. So I did. I walked back a bit. I zoomed out of the tree and I looked at it from a distance. And I was like, okay, sure. All right. We're taking a look. So what am I meant to learn here? And suddenly I started noticing all the branches of this tree. All the branches of the tree. And I realized, oh my God, how I've been approaching my business, my life, abundance in general, has been such a limited way of thinking. I have literally just been focusing on the teeniest, tiniest branch of this entire tree. Like I've been so laser focused and obsessed for years on the smallest branch of this entire big ass tree. And not only that, it's a branch that's literally been dying. It has been drying up. It has been stagnating. All the leaves have been falling off of it the last few years. My bank account's been drying up. My health was deteriorating. I was in so much stagnation the last few years and trying to control things even harder, like gripping that little branch even tighter, shaking it even harder, hoping and praying and begging for, more abundance to flow from it. I just, shook it as hard as I could, forced it as hard as I could. And then I just laughed. I suddenly just laughed and I was like, oh my God, this is abundance. Look at this tree. There are so many branches. So many branches. The one I chose to focus on and pour into has been dying for years and I refused to admit it. I refused to acknowledge that it was time to prune that branch. It was time to cut it off. It was time to focus on other branches, pour into other branches with limitless potential, that have all these leaves that are waiting to grow and bloom if I would just nourish them and pay attention to them and open up my eyes and open up my mind. Open up the pathways, open up limitless pathways to abundance. I was so fixated on this one branch. And I realized that's the key. That's what this tree is trying to teach me. If you're so hyper-focused on one tiny branch of the tree, if you refuse to admit the truth that branch is dying, and no matter how much you try to feed it and how much you try to water it, it's dying. Its time is done. Its time has ended. But there are so many other branches of the tree that you can pour into. There are so many other branches of the tree that want to give life. They want to bloom and flourish and blossom if you would just pay attention to them and nourish them and give them what they're asking for and speak to them kindly. Speak to them kindly. Give them love. So that's what nature has been teaching me about abundance, that, even if you cut everything off, even if all the leaves fall off, everything moves in cycles. In our world, we're taught from a very young age that there's never enough. So many of us are taught to live in this constant state of lack. And that constant state of lack is what keeps us on the hamster wheel. Always thinking there's not enough, I have to do more, I have to be more, I have to try more, I have to go harder. No, you don't. You have to find the branches of the tree that most need your attention. Stop focusing on what's already dying. Stop pouring into what's already ready to be released. There are limitless other branches and pathways and avenues that are calling for your attention. And you know how they're calling to you? Through curiosity, through excitement, through little breadcrumbs of joy. And you gotta follow the feelings, because they're leading you to much more prosperous, abundant, ready to flourish branches. So I really thank nature right now. I'm thanking nature for these lessons, for these beautiful lessons about this idea of abundance, and how can we tap into it by shifting our perspective, by shifting our attention, by learning how to discern what is ready to be released in our lives so that something new can actually flourish. So I'm sending you so much love today, my friends. If this message resonated with you, I would appreciate it so much if you would like, share, subscribe, follow along the journey for more truth transmissions, more wisdom weaving, more channeled messages like this to help you along your journey of evolution, because life is a living metamorphosis, and we're here to flow and grow and evolve and keep unfolding the layers of ourselves to discover who we truly are. And that's the path that I'm on. And if you're still listening, that's definitely the path you're on too. So lots of love, and I will see you in the next video. Oh, and if you want to follow along even more with written messages and more inspiration, definitely join my newsletter, link in the description, and we can stay in touch that way too. Would love to have you join. All right, take care, my friends. Bye-bye.